Hey everyone, today I'm talking about Carpe Diem, which is a 2018 release by prolific designer Stefan Feld, who is kind of unequivocally one of the most renowned Eurogame designers. I tend to like everything he puts out. But this one he's designed is a tile placement game for 2 to 4 players. Takes about 45 minutes to an hour to play, so it's a good kind of change of pace there for a Stefan Feld game, because normally they're a bit longer, a bit more kind of involved. This one is relatively simple in the way it plays, because all you're going to do on your turn is you are going to take your little your meeple that's on this rondelle of tiles, move them one place and in clockwise or anti-clockwise direction, and take a tile, and then you're going to put that tile on your board. The reasons or what you're trying to do with these tiles is you're trying to basically match up certain types to get certain resources or bonuses. You're trying to put them in certain locations to trigger endgame scoring, because if you say have a certain type of building overlapping a certain point of your grid, then you're going to get more points that way. And you're also trying to collect these different scrolls, which pushes you up the initiative track in order for you to kind of get first dibs on scoring criteria. So the game actually flows ultra smoothly, really quickly as well, because I said you just tick along really nicely and just take one tile at a time. There's a kind of a good amount of player interaction in terms of snatching tiles that people want, because there's not tons and tons of kind of certain types of tiles that come out each time. You know, they're quite scarce in you know, when you're gonna get what you want to get. The thing I like most about this game is the way that the actual scoring works, because what's going to happen is on the main board there's going to be this whole grid of cards, and all those cards have unique scoring kind of criteria on them. And what you're going to do is, depending on the initiative order, when everybody's finished kind of mopping up all the tiles, you're going to take one of your kind of markers and put them in an orthogonal position between 2 of those cards, and that means you're going to score based on the 2 cards that you're in between. So the cool thing is that once someone's gone somewhere, the other person can't go there. So only one combination of cards can be scored once. So it doesn't mean that the only one type of card is going to be scored once, because it can actually be scored 4 times. But the actual exact combination of the 2 cards can only be scored once. And this is a mechanism that I'd love to see used more. It makes that initiative kind of priority so much more important, because if you've really focused on something and the other person's almost gone there as well, if you're not in the lead, they might just snatch that from you and you can't actually score what you've been building towards. I really like that tension in this game. It works extremely well. And as I said, I'd just love to see this kind of embedded in a more heavy game. That being said, I'm not taking away from this game being on the lighter side of things. I think it's a really nice way. It plays so smoothly and it plays so quickly, as I said. There are a few kind of issues I have with it though. Number one is, I think it's a kind of a dispute that a lot of people had about this game, is that it does look extremely drab and extremely bland. The art is very mundane. The colours are all very browns and greys. It's very, very boring to look at. The quality of the kind of tiles in that themselves are actually relatively good, and I have the kind of the second version of this game, which is a slight improvement on the initial version, which I think some of the colours were extremely hard to differentiate between in certain types of buildings and the backs of the tiles to kind of separate them into piles and stuff. So particularly if you're like me and you're colourblind, you literally couldn't even tell the difference between some of these tiles. But yeah, the actual visual aspect of the game is not that good at all. The symbology and stuff is absolutely fine. It's just the actual, the kind of artwork is just so drab. I also have a kind of a little nitpick as well, is that some of the tiles, or in fact all the tiles, the way they kind of fit together is quite boring as well. There's not like all the interesting shapes and stuff that you get in Carcassonne or something like that. You know, when there's kind of they're in diagonals, and you know, they've got half of a certain type here and half one there, and you've got to kind of really puzzle them all together. This one is very much just, here's half a building, here's half a building, plug them together and get your bonus. So it's a bit more kind of boring in that aspect, but to be honest, it wasn't as much of a problem as I thought it would be initially looking at it. I thought, oh, that looks a bit drab. But when you actually get going, because you're trying to overlap those different grids to get that, you know, to get the certain types of buildings over certain lines, it actually does work okay. Some of the bonuses are pretty interesting as well, such as if you kind of apply a certain type of building together, you get to pick another tile from a face-up stack of tiles, so you can kind of strategize more that way. You've got ones that if you build one, you get money, which is important, which I'll explain in a minute. You get ones that give you bread, which again is very important. You've got the different kind of, the ones that gather the resources, which depends on how big the section is you put together. You get that many tiles -1 of that resource. So, and as I said, obviously you're trying to get those resources because some of the cards might say, "I'll have X amount of fish," or something like that. So, yeah, so the kind of produce tiles are very, very simple. They're all the same. You've got your chickens, you've got your fish, and I think you've got your corn as well. The other buildings as well, some of them let you convert all your goods into money. And as I said, money is important because money is a wild resource. So you can spend 1 coin as a kind of a dummy or a replica of any type of resources at all in the game. Bread equally is important because you can use bread as a 1 piece of bread in order to go anywhere on the rondel to get any tile you want, or you can use 3 bits of bread in the scoring phase in order to claim an objective that you don't have the criteria for. So you can score an objective card without having actually what you need to score it. And that is kind of where I lost a bit of interest in this game, because it seemed to me that the main strategies that you want to take are collect gold and collect bread. And that kind of completely eradicates the whole need of collecting certain types of resources, which you're actually trying to do in the first place to score the cards. Because why not just collect money? Because then you can score anything you want. You're so much more flexible and so on. And likewise with bread, who cares if I have a certain type of resources, because I can just trade in 3 bread in order to score any card I want. And I'd understand if if the coins and bread were so, were extremely rare and hard to get, but they're actually not. I found it quite easy to get a lot of money, to get a lot of bread, and almost for the whole, almost every game I've played of this, that's been the absolute dominating strategy. Just get your bread, get your money, and just do what the hell you want. And that just completely makes a mockery of the whole card scoring aspect, which is, as I said, my favourite part of the game. So I was kind of, I'm kind of a bit hit and miss on this one. I do really enjoy it, and I do recommend it. It's so much fun, and it's quick, and it's a nice turn of pace. I love the tension of getting the tiles you want. I love the initiative order track. But yeah, I was just a bit deflated at the fact that you could just mitigate what you need on those cards so much. And if it was just half as much, I would have found this a lot better. Now, that being said, I don't want to sound like I'm being too negative on this one, because it is another really good Stefan Feld game. And for a tile placement game, it does work really nicely. I said the decisions are there and what you want to get. And hopefully get before your opponent gets us there, because I said there's not that many tiles, and you only move your little pawn around so many times before the round's over. The rounds really do fly by. The different strategies you can take as well, they're all good, but as I said, the focusing on the coins and the bread, I think, is definitely the best part of this game. And if someone really kind of ignores that, then you can really run away with it. Mechanisms so pure and so clean. Literally, I said, move your guy around, pick a tile up, put it on your board, and trying to get the different points that way. Time frame, excellent. I mean, to play a game or strategy game in 45 minutes to an hour is a really nice timestamp, and it does feel really quick as well. So a nice satisfying amount of gameplay and depth and strategy in this one for the amount of time it takes. Uptime as well, absolutely fantastic. Literally next to no AP with this one. It does flow very nicely. Replayability, in some ways, really good, because you've got so many different cards you can put out and different formations of scoring criteria, all the different tiles and stuff. But at the same time, if you're going to focus on that bread strategy, focus on the money strategy, then it doesn't really matter what cards you bring out anyway. There's also, something I should have mentioned as well, is another way to score points is by putting these villas down, which you score points based on the amount of chimneys you have on your board at the end of the game, in a very kind of simple, almost like a set collection style manner, where the more you have, the bigger the multipliers become, and you can score a whole chunk of points that way. Player interaction in terms of snatching tiles from people is good. Getting further up the initiative track is good, because, as I said, getting the cards that you want is so important if someone's gone for the same thing, because you can really be shut out and just completely shafted on what you wanted to do and end up losing points because you can't actually activate a scoring card. Aesthetically, meh, you know, I can't really recommend this on the way it looks. I mean, I actually quite like the way the box looks and the box cover and stuff, which a lot of people don't like, but the actual tiles themselves are so drab and so boring looking, which normally doesn't bother me, and to be honest, it personally doesn't really act as a negative for me, but I can completely see why someone wouldn't want to play this based on the way it looks, because it does look boring. And theme as well is very abstract. There's not much theme. You're basically trying to make these different, your little kind of zone of houses and villas and, you know, farms and stuff like that. Not much theme there at all. And setup and teardown time, not too much of an issue. Obviously, you've got your tiles set up, you've got to do each round and stuff like that, but you know, nothing overbearing. So yeah, overall, obviously I've kind of aired my negatives about it, but it still is a game that I enjoy. It is still a good game. Not as good as I thought it would be. I thought it really appealed to me. As I said, I love Stefan Feld games. I really like tile placement games. So the idea of kind of a Euro-y tile placement game with a Feld feel really did appeal to me, especially considering how short it is. And you know, it did hit that kind of criteria, and I did enjoy it. But just that scoring mitigation did bother me a bit. You know, the fact that it does take such a quick time and it is so light and airy is a massive positive for me, and it definitely means I would play it again happily. But yeah, not quite strong enough to stay in my collection, this one. It just didn't have the draw for me to keep going back to it because of those few little problems I had with it. But yeah, still a game I would give a good verdict to. You know, I would maybe recommend it to someone who wants maybe a little more dimensions to it, like maybe a step above, like a Carcassonne or something like that. But yeah, just the few problems that I had with it just took it below what I kind of wanted it to be. So yeah, but still gets about a 7 out of 10 for me, which is a good rating. So, you know, please don't take all these negative comments as a negative reflection of the game, because it still gets a good rating for me. But for Stefan Feld, I thought it'd be slightly better. So that concludes my review of Carpe Diem. If you have enjoyed it, please hit like and subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos too. For everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.